Okay, just a sign right here. Yeah, no, I understand. Thank you. No, I think I know where it came from. Hey, Mike, can you explain this, please? Oh, my little buddy certainly gets carried away when he starts ordering online, doesn't he? And now we've got all these wonderful spam kits. We need to show you how to do all of this great stuff. And yes, today's tutorial is the tote bag. I am Rob Appell from Making It Fun, Michael Miller Fabrics, and I'm so excited you're joining us here. Now, Michael Miller Fabrics, you know, we just love our license agreements, and we have this wonderful partnership with Spam Products, and I am super excited to be playing with this great fabric and having a blast just sharing the love of Spam with all of you. So we have this beautifully packaged, these wonderful kits that are just great. One is the apron that I'm wearing, and the other is the tote bag we're going to make here pretty quick. A couple of steps, I've jumped right ahead. In the box itself, you're going to find that you have the wonderful Spam printed fabric. Now this fabric here, and the one I'm wearing is the apron, is actually a lightweight canvas duck cloth, and then the one on my head here and a couple of the other prints are our lightweight cottons for quilting and other kinds of sewing. So we have two different weights of Spam fabric, as well as Spam comes regular and light nowadays, low sodium Spam. So at any rate, we're going to play with this print today. We're going to have a blast. We're going to make this really fun and easy tote bag. You will also need to get yourself some fusible fleece. I love the Heat and Bond product. It's an iron-on fleece. It's going to make our bag have a nice amount of body. And I jumped ahead, did a couple of the steps already. So we're going to need to go ahead following the instructions, and we're going to cut our fabric pieces here of our Spam fabric and our liner fabric. That's going to be the yellow fabric that's in your bag. We're going to save the blue fabric here for our handles in a few moments. We'll get back to those. So at any rate, with this fabric and the liner fabric, you're going to make two pieces that are 17 inches by 19 inches. So 17 tall and 19 wide, because the Spam print has a direction to it. If my pieces look a little smaller, they might be. And so let me just say, remember, always measure twice and cut once, especially when it comes to these rare fabrics. So anyway, I'm going to walk you through the steps. Mine might be a little bit different size than yours, but anyways, we're moving on. So on the back of each of your bag fronts, the Spam fabrics themselves, we're going to adhere the fusible fleece. So on the fusible fleece, I also needed two pieces that were the 17 by 19. And in order to get that on the back of the Spam fabric, the best way to do it is you feel your fusible fleece, and there's going to be a really rough side. That rough side's going to be the glue, and I've got my iron heating up nice and hot here. And I'm just going to spread this out. And then I'm going to make sure that my fabric covers, and kind of like when I'm basting a quilt, I actually want to take, and this canvas has got a nice little bit of give to it, which makes it really easy to sew with. But I want to start from the middle here now, and I'm just going to go ahead and press this, adding a bit of heat, a bit of steam, and I'm going to go in one direction nice and slow, bonding all of that out. And then again from the center back the other direction. And this is just going to keep the print on the fabric looking so very nicely. So like I said, you're going to do that to both pieces. Do let them cool for a while. And then we're going to marry these two pieces of fabric together, right sides together. So just again, double check the orientation. Make sure that your cans are right side up on your shelf. And then go ahead and lay them together. And what I would like to do is I'm going to go ahead and start by sewing across this bottom row. And because we're doing a bag, I'm going to use a little bit larger than a 1/4 inch seam allowance today. So I'm just going to use the edge of my presser foot. And I'm just going to stitch along, securing all 4 layers, the 2 layers of the canvas Spam fabric and the layers of the fusible fleece here. And because you've sewn across the bottom, you're now at one bottom corner. So here we can simply lift our presser foot up, rotate the fabric out, grab that same seam allowance basically, and lower your presser foot and sew from the bottom corner up to the top of the bag. Let's take a moment and backstitch as we reach the top, just for extra security now. And now I'm going to go ahead and flip it over and start at that other bottom corner and sew up, because that's where the stitching is. This will help prevent building any puckers or gaps in the bottom corner. But in a second, we're going to go ahead and make box corners anyways. But let's just have good sewing habits. Okay, so now we have all three sides secure. Before I cut anything, I'm gonna make sure I've done it right, because sometimes I'm just having one of those days. So I look in and my spam orientation is golden, and now I'm gonna show you a brand new way I've just learned to make the box corners. If you've seen my other videos before, you'll watch me kind of manipulate and manhandle and kind of roughhouse with these corners. And so this is cool, and this is why I love working from patterns. I didn't write the pattern instructions here, but I'm learning from them. And so this particular box corner, what we're going to do is we're going to measure up from the bottom and the side 2 1/4 inches, and I'm actually going to do it at the exact same time. So I'm coming up and over 2 1/4, and then with a rotary cutter I'm going to cut in. Careful not to go too far past that little corner there. Switch hands, re-secure, make sure everything's golden. And you might need to come in here and just make sure that you make that connection natural there. Do the same to the other side. Now that those are cut out of the way, basically you're going to grab the edges and kind of pull at it, bring it over, match these edges up, bend your seam so that they're kind of nesting, and then just come right over, and with that same seam allowance. I think this is a genius way of doing it. I can't believe I had never seen this before. This is just lovely. So now I'm going to come in here, so much less bulk, especially if you're working with the wonderful fusible fleece. Same seam allowance. So let's back up all the way to the outside edge. We really want this to be secure. We don't want our groceries falling out. Coming all the way over. And then the same thing at the end. We're just going to back stitch to secure. Same thing to the other side. Grab, pull, nest. And now the outside of the bag is technically completely done this way with those wonderful box corners. And wasn't that easier than I've ever shown you before? Yeah, it really was. Now, the other thing I want to point out real quick is that wonderful yellow fabric. I had the 2 rectangles that were 17 inches by 19 inches. I've done the exact same thing. So I stitched around the sides and the bottom. I did the exact same method for, I tested the box corners to make sure they're going to work. I'm going to leave this one wrong sides out, or seams out right now. I'm going to also now take this wonderful bag and turn it right sides out this way. And now we're going to build our handles. And to build the handles, we had the wonderful blue cotton couture, which again, that high density solid from Michael Miller fabrics. The instructions ask you to cut 2 strips that are the width of fabric, and then they're 4 inches wide. So this one was 4 inches, or I should say is 4 inches wide, but I've already pressed it in half for the first step. So now it's 2 by the width of the fabric. But what we're really doing is we're going to make the straps and we're going to put little extra strips of that wonderful fusible fleece inside. So what we really want to do is we're just using this as kind of that center marker. And as I fold the edges over to kind of meet that, I'm going to fold it too close to the center, but not exactly to the center. It'll make it easier to fold it over later and much, much easier to slide our fusible fleece inside. So first we're just going to do this to both edges, pressing over the raw edges now to what becomes the middle. So when we're done, we're basically going to have about a 1-inch strap. And what I also found was, because I was using a pre-packaged size of the fusible fleece from Thermoweb Heat and Bond, I was able to use my scraps, but I had to use a couple of small little pieces, and these aren't going to be a problem at all in our strapping. So these are 1 inches wide. The instructions say width of fabric, but mine's not quite as long. So all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to lift up one of these edges, and I'm going to just lay this in that first crease like that. I'm going to let this fold over here. You could iron it, but I'm not going to really take that time. I have cut the selvage off, so that's out of my way. Now I'm also just going to fold this over, so basically I've got no raw edges, and as I come over here to the sewing machine, yes, I just have one piece in place right now. I'm going to lower the presser foot so my needle's basically right over the top of that edge. You might want to use a matching color thread. I'm not, but that's okay. And now I'm just going to stitch, top stitching this strap closed with no raw edges and a 1-inch strip of that fusible fleece inside. Now my strips of fusible fleece are about 20 inches long, so I'm going to sew down here until I'm almost out of the fusible fleece, which will be down here. And when I have a few inches to spare, we're just going to slide in a new piece. And as I approach the end of that fusible fleece, I'm basically just going to cut my threads. I'm not even going to backstitch because I really know that my straps don't need to be 45 inches long. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut one nice little edge here, and I've already measured, and I'm going to basically do a 30-inch strap. So I'm just looking, I'm coming down here to where my 30-inch mark is, make sure I've got it right, and I'm going to cut. And I kind of eyeballed that. I don't know if 30 inches is the right length or not because I'm not much of a tote bag guy. I'm more of a satchel kind of a guy. You know, Indiana Jones carries one. Either way, once you have your straps, we're going to go ahead and put these to the right sides of the tote bag. So if you have one side that's not as pretty as the other, where the seam was, why don't we sew that to the edge of the tote bag? And we're just going to come over, I'm going to say basically 2 inches from our seam here. So I'm just looking here, 2 inches over, pointing downward. We're going to take a pin and we're going to put this in place. I'm going to come around to that same panel. I'm going to come over 2 inches. Make sure the strap maintains its uniform there. Come over my 2 inches and again, place a pin. Once these pins are in place, I'm going to come over to the presser foot, make sure that I don't have the other side of the bag trap underneath, and right along the edge, we're just going to secure this right now. Less than the seam allowance we're going to make in a little bit because we don't want anybody to see this work. Just a little bit of a basting stitch if you want to call it that. I didn't change my stitch length, however. Catch both sides. After you get that second strap on, go ahead and pull the pins out so you'll stop poking yourself. Twice I got myself that time. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to secure the liner. So we have our wonderful bag itself, and it is right sides out right now. We have our liner and its seams out right now. And I'm just going to line up the sides and I'm going to drop the bag pretty into the outside liner. I'm going to slowly line up the outside seams. And we really want to make sure we get our handles pushed down, pointing down inside of there. And we're just going to need to leave a little bit of an opening to come back out. And I'd like to do that on one side here between these two handles probably. So we're just going to start here on the other side of this handle just a little ways, but I know that that seam is lined up nice. And now I'm going to find that it's probably just as easy to have the liner down. I want to make sure I can see it. And I'm going to do a little bit larger seam allowance than I had been, and definitely larger than that seam allowance when I put on the strap, so that I make sure that that stays hidden in there. And we're just going to start sewing, but we're definitely going to backstitch. Because we're going to turn the bag right sides out through this little opening we're going to leave. So we're going to sew about 80% of the way around. Take your time. We're going to sew up just about where that other handle started. Backstitch to secure it again so I can put some pressure on that. Let's cut these threads and get out of the way here. And now we should have this little opening right here where we should be able to reach in and gently start to roll our wonderful tote bag to right sides out, liner, seam in. Make sure our handles are accounted for and all of that. And then I'm going to start to drop this and press it, or I should say, drop this right back in here. Oh, that looks so fun. It all worked perfect. We've got a little bit more top stitching to do to catch this outer edge. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to manipulate the opening by rolling it underneath, kind of letting everything just kind of feel its way through. And at this point, I'm going to drop it so that the liner itself, the bag itself is on the sewing machine. I like to have the weight, the heavier fabric on the weight. And now we're going to do a really nice top stitch to finish. Again, you might want to have some matching color thread right now. And I'm starting in the area where we've already stitched so that I can get a really good starting spot, and then I can come on back over. Now I want all the bulk of the foot, so this time I'm going to go ahead and actually move my needle's position over to aid in what I'm doing, and then I'm just going to get myself a really nice little head start down here in the area that I want to capture, which is that top stitch, and away we go. So we're getting ready to seal the bag. This will be the most delicate spot. So just take your time as you work through here. Just using your fingers to secure. Making sure you have the straps right where you want it as you seal it off. Tuck it in pretty. And now the rest of this is probably just going to be business as usual. Watch out for your straps. Roll the edge under so you see a nice crisp edge right here. And just go ahead and finish out your top stitching all the way around the bag. The bag is sealed and finished now. You just need to do a nice job of securing this top edge so it looks pretty. And here we come into the very last few stitches. Again, let's backstitch to secure. I'm going to use my thread cutter, the automatic presser foot lifter, and here we are. Whoa, look at that, super cool tote bag. I think the straps worked out great at 30 inches as well. Lined, solid, secure, ready to fill up at a local market with your favorite food group. And of course we know that as Spam right here at Making It Fun and Michael Miller Fabrics. And again, you know we're having a blast. We're putting out a bunch of tutorials right now, having a wonderful time with this wonderful new licensing partnership we have with Spam. I certainly hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. You know I love to hear from all of you in the comments below. So why don't you let me know what new thing you've learned recently, because I was so excited about those wonderful box corners, and I'd much rather confess to learning a new sewing technique than a new food preparation technique for our favorite food group. I'm glad to see you're still there. Hey, if you insist on spending all day on YouTube, great with me. Please check out a few of my other videos. I think they're fantastic. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell to be notified. We'll see you next time for another helping of fun.